Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Report. I'm your host, Chris Berg. I'm the head of business development and land acquisition here in California for Abernathey Holdings. We're a self-storage development company building Class A self-storage all across California and Arizona. If you're someone out there that has a piece of dirt, you're thinking, you know what, it might fit for self-storage, let us know. We'd love to take a look at it, maybe even buy it from you. Got a very special guest today. I'm excited to introduce you to. He's the president of Abernathey Development and a self-proclaimed self-storage geek. We were at ISS in Vegas this spring, and he was like, I am in heaven here with all this self-storage talk 24/7. Nate Medhus. So, Nate, it's great to have you. Thanks for giving us some time. And I guess let's just start there. A little bit about your journey. You owned and operated self-storage yourself. So a little bit about your journey and just it's clear how much you love this asset class. Why?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I do. I love self-storage as a real estate investment. I've been a real estate investor for 20 years now. Started out like a lot of people do with some single-family houses, duplexes, things like that. And I really saw how real estate can be a great wealth accumulator and wealth creator for an investor. So I got into it a long time ago, 20 years ago. And I was very fortunate to have a good friend of mine who became a mentor, and he brought me into the self-storage business. He showed me the value creation that self-storage can do for as a real estate investment and as an asset class, but more importantly, the simplicity of self-storage versus other real estate asset classes. When I had my houses, there's a party on Friday night, there's a leaky toilet. I remember I got called to a duplex one time on a Sunday morning, the day of the Super Bowl, and the basement had flooded and the sewer and septic had backed up. It was a mess. And all of a sudden, my friend is telling me about steel and concrete and self-storage. He said, we're dealing with people's stuff, not with people. So he said the landlord-tenant relationship is very different. The landlord-tenant laws are more favorable towards the landlord instead of the tenant. So I was very fortunate and blessed to have Bruce as a partner and as a mentor. He brought me into his operation. We acquired a facility together, and he really encouraged me to learn about the business, learn about the industry more importantly. And he was very supportive. He always told me, Nate, read your trade journals, He was supportive of paying for me to go to the ISS show in Vegas. We were a member of the SSA. So he said, read your trade journals, learn everything you can to know about this industry. Don't worry about just our one facility or our two facilities. I ended up overseeing our operation. We had 3 facilities here in Fargo, North Dakota, 1,600 units. We had 5 employees, and it was wonderful. It was a great learning opportunity for me to come into and learn this little side hustle of real estate while I had my banking career. I had a 20-year banking career in business banking. All my clients were contractors, real estate developers, and real estate investors. So I took the knowledge that I gained over 20 years of banking, and then I took my quote unquote side hustle of self-storage. And then I hooked up with Andrew Abernathey, the founder of Abernathey Holdings, and Matt Halverson, who's the president of Abernathey Holdings. Met with them back in 2018, 5 years ago now, seems like forever ago. And they said, hey, Nate, we know you're in the storage business. We just want to pick your brain. We have some ideas about what we could do in the storage business and how we could really create value for our investors and grow and grow and grow. And so we sat down, and what was supposed to be a 30-minute conversation lasted, I think, 4 or 5 hours. We had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun talking, and they had a lot of fun listening, which was great. And after that, they're like, Nate, let's do this. We want you to do it with us. We want you to do it for us. We want you to be a part of this. So, we really tried to build a model that we felt was scalable. We had to get a proof of concept first. So we found a piece of dirt down in Gilbert, Arizona, and we put our architects together, the engineers, we got our contractor. And of course, we did it through COVID. It was awful. It was obnoxious. We had delays. We made a ton of mistakes, but then the doors opened, and it took us, 3.5 years, I think, from start to finish, which is way longer than we should have had. But it was, again, a great learning opportunity. And we did it, and the doors opened. And I think right now we've been open for 8 months. We're at 66% occupancy already, and we are just so excited about what's happening there. So, but yeah, you're right. As an asset class, I love self-storage. I think it's very simple. I love that there is a lot of diversity in types of owners. If you're going to own an apartment building, you have to have a pretty significant chunk of down payment, and then you have to either know how to run it or pay someone to run it. With self-storage, you can start as small as you want. You can be as big as you want. You look at Extra Space and their acquisition of Life Storage. You look at Public Storage, to a guy in the Midwest who lives in a town of 500 people who has a storage building with 12 doors on it. It's just a very diverse industry. And so you go to the trade shows, and there aren't any secrets, because at the end of the day, what everyone's trying to do is rent self-storage. Since COVID, there's been a lot more emphasis in boat and RV storage. So that's kind of a new asset class, or a sub-asset class of self-storage. But at the end of the day, we're renting self-storage, and then we're collecting rents. That's as simple as it is. People go off and they try to do, propane sales, or they have, U-Haul trailers or budget trucks, or, different things like that. And I've got experience in those. Right now, that's not the model we're looking at. We are looking at building self-storage, renting self-storage units. It's just as easy as that.
So a few things that jumped out to me is, one, you tell, hey, Chris, it's a really simple business. When you partnered up with your partner, was it 10, 15 years ago?
Yep, about 15 years ago, yeah.
Read the journals, know the industry. You're a very studious person, so I'm assuming you were studying all this stuff. And then you come in and you just say, yeah. And then we ended up buying this piece of dirt in Arizona, and man, we made a bunch of mistakes. So, walk me through that, where you go, hey, Chris, I've studied this. I've been in this industry for a while. What was new to you? Was it more acquisition 15 years ago, and now it's development? Or
so I had some experience with development, but not on the scale that we're doing right now. And I would compare it to a medical student going to medical school and reading all the books, seeing all the videos, doing a frog cadaver, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you're in the operating room the next day after graduation, and there's a body in front of you. It's like, okay, so that's kind of the comparison that I was using. So we made mistakes, but I think, there are so many different ways to build a self-storage facility, and there are so many different target markets that people look for. And so what we've tried to do at Abernathey is pencil out a model that we feel is scalable, that we can replicate in lots of different markets, but should lead us to what we see as success. I've sat in on conference calls, I've sat in on meetings where other people are speaking, other developers. They have a target demographic. Maybe they want to have income from 40,000 to 80,000 people. Maybe they want to have income below 40,000. Maybe they want to have income above 80,000, whatever. There's lots of different ways. We're all trying to develop a facility that we feel we can maximize the revenues in the marketplace that we're in and minimize the costs. Our model at Abernathey is we want to look at a 3-mile radius. And we look at a 3-mile radius because in the top 50 urban metros that we're working in, or that we want to work in, if you live 3 miles away from your storage facility, that's probably a 5 to 10 minute drive. People that live in Phoenix, they don't want to drive out to Surprise or to Tucson for their storage unit. They don't want a 30-minute drive or a 60-minute drive for their 10 by 10. So 5 to 10 miles away. So we look at a 3-mile radius. We want 80,000 people or more in that 3-mile radius. And we want to have average household income in excess of 80,000. Again, that's just the model that we've put together. We didn't make it up. We talked with lots of different people. We looked at what happens when the economy goes up, what happens when the economy goes down, who is more impacted, who's less impacted. That's just our model. Again, lots of different models out there.
And it helps when you've got a JV like this gentleman, Mr. Gary Thurlton, right? I mean, he's been riding for a long time.
Absolutely. Our CEO and founder, Andrew Abernathy's had a relationship with Gary Thurlton for a long time. Gary has built hundreds and hundreds of hotels, over 500 hotels, been in the business, has really revolutionized the way that the hotel business works. And so we have a great relationship with Gary as a JV partner. He has given us access to his knowledge, to his opinion, some of his team members. So he comes in and says, hey, guys, let's be disciplined investors. Every once in a while, we'll find a project where maybe the income is 150,000, but there's only 50,000 people there. And he's like, guys, this isn't what you sold me on. You sold me on this model. I bought into it. Let's stay disciplined. So it's really fun when you kind of get a little bit too excited as like the kid in the candy store, looking at all the opportunities. And then Gary says, hey, guys, we have a model. I believe in the model that you guys built. Let's stick to it. So again, it's given us confidence in the model that we have, but it's also kind of kept us on track for what we want to do. So when we look at those demographics, then we look at building size and facility size. We aren't interested in building rows of steel buildings, not knocking that product, because there's a ton of people that want to drive up next to their unit and then unload their stuff. So, but our target is multi-story, climate-controlled facilities for the most part. We really feel that that's an area that we can succeed on and thrive in. So, yeah.
So you had a really successful banking career. You were doing really well in self-storage. You meet Andrew, you meet Matt. What was it about the vision of Abernathey Holdings, the model, where you said, whoa, okay, I'm in?
I really liked, Andrew's a very captivating person. If you have a chance to meet him, he has a personality that is very humble and yet very confident at the same time. When you talk with him, you can tell that he's one of those people that just thinks a little bit differently. If you met him at a McDonald's and we're just chit-chatting in line, you'd think he was just a regular guy because he'd have jeans on and a T-shirt on. The first time I met him, he had jeans, a T-shirt, and kind of a dirty olive green jacket. But the more I sat and talked with him, you can tell that his brain just works a little bit differently. And what I mean by that is he only thinks down the road 18 steps. So, he's almost the ultimate chess player. So, I think that, he really drew me in his confidence. I've known Matt Halverson his whole life. So I've always had confidence in Matt's ability to be successful. And it was very inspiring to me that they wanted to talk to me. They wanted my ideas. They wanted to know what my knowledge was. And that I captivated them, and they wanted me to be a part of their team based on the knowledge that I had. So that was a lot of fun. So right off the bat, everything just clicked. And so we did a lot of research. We met with people. So everything just kind of took off from there, really.
So you've been doing this now, let's just say roughly 5 years with those guys. What's the best thing you've learned? And where do you see Abernathey Holdings going? Like, kind of walk us through the vision over the next 10 years.
So, the best thing that I've learned from Matt and Andrew is it's good to ask questions. I've been in meetings with Andrew where he might be the smartest guy in the room, but all he's doing is ask questions to learn. And that's a lot of fun. And it's reassuring that we don't have to have all the answers. We just have to be humble enough to ask the questions to get the answers. And so what we've done then is try to build our development teams on that same basis. Is let's bring guys to the table that have achieved success, that have a high level of expertise, but also people that are willing to be humble, because we all have a shared and common goal of a successful project. And so if I make a mistake, I want someone else to call me out on it. And if one of our architects or one of our engineers or our entitlement people, if they make a mistake, we need to be able to call them out on it. It's like, hey, all egos aside here, we're all here for the same reason. It's a round table approach. There's no one at the head of the table. What can we do? Let's give each other feedback so we can move forward and have a successful project. So with that goal in mind, what we're doing right now is where we're at today is we're working in two different markets, in the Arizona market and the California market. We've got land acquisition guys that are working in those markets, and our goal is to do 6 projects a year in each one of those 2 markets. And as we grow over time, we could look at a 3rd market or a 4th market. But yeah, in the next 10 years, we really want to build probably 120 to 150 facilities. We have our own construction project managers in-house. And so we can oversee all of our subcontractors. It gives us a little bit better value proposition for our investors, having more control of some of those vertical integrations that we've done. But we also can do a lot more value engineering up front. We can bring in our contractors and our project managers and say, okay, let's look. We want you involved earlier in the process. So a lot of guys that are developers, they're familiar with the design build process. Well, we've taken it one step further, and we're trying to have some of that design build process in house. So again, that way we know the guys that they're working with us, they're working for us, and so we're really trying to create them at the same time.
Is that your mom?
That's my mother-in-law. Hi,
Oh, hi.
Hi.
So last question for you, because I think I'll never forget, Nate, when you and I were at ISS in Vegas, and we started telling people like, oh yeah, Chris is getting going, we're going into California, and people literally laughed at us, right? They were like, why are you going? So you've been doing some work now, a lot of site work in Arizona. I've got my own point of view because I feel like things in Fresno have gone pretty well for us.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say are the distinctions or the differences between AZ and California, if there are any?
In California, it's an underserved market as a state, but there are pockets where the demographics just don't seem to work. And so I think before we really dug into California, we thought there'd be a lot more opportunity than we found. But I think that going back to what Gary told us about staying disciplined is I think we've had to work hard to stay disciplined in the markets that we're looking at in California. We've heard this horror stories about how hard it is to build things in California. But again, I think if you find the right people that bring expertise to the table, but they leave their egos at the door and they come in and they say, hey, I want to be a part of this team. I like what you guys are doing. We tell everyone we're not interested in doing one project and then being done. We want to do multiple projects. It's got to be scalable. And so, from a job standpoint, guys know that, hey, we're not here just to have them do one job. It's hopefully there's repetition for that. So I think that we've developed some good relationships by trying to communicate our vision up front without overselling it. Sometimes you can come off as a little bit of a dreamer, but I think that we've shown people that we have a vision, but we also have steps to achieve that vision. So I think that's fun. In California, it's just a different world over there. It's on the far West Coast, and they're far out there. That's for sure. So other challenges that we're seeing, we don't know yet. And I think that's again where you have to have some humility. Is what are we going to encounter? And when someone throws something at your head, you got to be willing to respond to it and not be scared, not freak out. We know, again, we're going to make some mistakes on our first projects in California. Every one of these projects is different. Every one of these projects is complicated. So even when you think you know what you're doing, you get a curveball. And someone at a city says, hey, we need a report on this. We need an examination on that. We need another tribal review. We need another CEQA evaluation. We need, who knows what it's going to be. But I think at the end of the day, just making sure you don't freak out, you don't throw your hands in the air and walk away. Just know you have to be willing to expect that you're going to get a lot of unexpected curveballs. And so it's how do you respond and make sure you don't over-respond or overreact to the curveballs that come at you is really the key.
So well said, because even as we've been going through deals and looking at deals, like we both said, like there's not a perfect deal out there, right? There's always kind of something where you got to tweak this or be patient with that. And so I'll give you the last word. Anything else you want to add or share that I haven't asked you?
No, I think I'm just excited to be a part of the team that we have at Abernathey Holdings. I think we've got a lot of positive things going for us. I think the future is just really exciting.
Thank you. Nate Medhus, again, he's the president of Abernathey Development and a self-proclaimed just loves the asset class. And I got to say, it's really rubbed off on me. I'm new to the asset class. It's been great to be a part of this team and watch Nate just share and educate me as, hey, this is where we're going. Here's why. And so, Nate, thank you for that very, very much.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, it's great to have you again. The Commercial Real Estate Report. I'm your host, Chris Berg. If you've got any dirt you want to sell in California, please let us know, in Arizona as well. We'll take a look at it and see if it fits for what we're trying to do to meet this vision of 100 sites in the next 10 years.